Great.
All right. So welcome to another weekly community forum here. My name is Alfredo Mathew. I'm the founder of Working World LLC and the Future of Our Work podcast. And I'm here with my colleague, Wesley Alexander, CEO of CoBiz. And we really started this community forum when the pandemic hit now about 6 weeks ago, right? We've been having these regular conversations, and it really just began because there are so many issues coming up, and we just wanted to help people stay informed and create a space where people can not just share resources, but also insights and think about how we can build back stronger. What do we really need to be thinking about? And all of the conversations are around education, workforce, entrepreneurship, really around helping people make this transition, be resilient in this moment. And over the past few weeks, we talked about the digital divide. We've talked about closing the school year strong. And today we're talking about an amazing topic, our young people and the class of 2020. And how are we going to support this generation to make the transition from high school into college and career? And in 2 weeks, we're going to be going part 2 of this conversation, from college into the workforce. So they're both really aligned, but we want to think a little bit more about this high school into college, and just rethinking college. But I'm gonna let my colleague Wesley introduce, and we're gonna do a quick round of introductions, and then we're gonna get into our topics.
Thank you, Alfredo. Excellent introduction in regard to the purpose of these community forums. My name is Wesley Alexander, CEO of CoBiz Richmond. And ultimately, while we usually use space to facilitate a lot of connectivity, we're trying to use these virtual sessions to have us share our thoughts and insights about what's happening and how we can all kind of collaborate to respond collectively, especially when it comes to supporting our young people. So we are really grateful to the panelists who are here, who are in the education arena, who can kind of speak to not only with the educational institutions, but the companies that are doing internships, the companies that are looking to hire, all the things that are required to ensure that young people are propelled for success and being leaders as they transition from high school to college, college to the professional or grad school arenas. So thank you guys for your time.
So let's just do a quick, what brings you here, and who are you? What do you represent? Starting with you, Bruce.
Yeah, so I'm the campus academic director for University of Phoenix in the Bay Area. And, we're a bit of a different path, as many know and some don't, but, we are not typically the pathway for someone straight out of high school into college. We're that path for those that are, they're in the career mix, and now they need to supplement with, college to finish something out, or layer on an additional goal. And while I have that background, I'm also a parent. I have one that's a junior in high school getting ready to do his, trek to get into college, and another one that's in the middle of his college experience. In fact, he just finished his last final semester at home yesterday. And so, college and transition to college is a topic that's very near to me, having just recently sent one to college and getting ready to send one to college, but then working with our stakeholder mix that is, oftentimes it is parents, but it's also folks that are pursuing college in a little different context.
Yeah. So University of Phoenix definitely has a unique space here. Going down the Brady Bunch to Jessie.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Jessie Stewart, and I have the privilege of serving as the executive director for the Richmond Promise. And we are a community-wide scholarship and college success initiative here in Richmond. And I know we're going to get more into this, but what brings me here is really I guess our laser focused commitment to, currently the over 700 high school seniors who have applied to the Richmond Promise, who will be, hopefully starting their college journeys this fall. And then our over 1,100 current Richmond Promise scholars. And we actually have our first graduating class, preparing for, an uncertain workforce right now. So just really a commitment to, investing in our future leaders here in Richmond, and really looking forward to this conversation. So thanks for including me.
Awesome. And to the left, Miss Bobbie Reyes.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bobbie Reyes, and I'm actually a graduating senior at UC Berkeley. So I'm repping today Cal football, and I thought it was very fitting that I wear Cal football because it's going to be one of the many things I'm going to miss once I graduate, which will be technically, I should have been graduating in 2 weeks, but I have my last finals next week. And I'm really just excited to kind of give the perspective of actually the student who's living through this, what we call an interesting time, but what I like to call a time of opportunity. So I'm really excited to kind of give share my experience, not only from an undergrad standpoint, but I also work for the MBA program at Haas. So I kind of get to see the administrative standpoint for our graduate students, and sometimes how we think that education, there's barriers, not just from elementary school to college, but also there's this missing gap for our MBA students. So I'm also here to advocate for them, for people that are pursuing higher education past undergrad. But I know we're going to scale back down to high school to college, but that's kind of where my lens comes today. I'm also a speaker and an entrepreneur, and I go and talk about life lessons, leadership, and just empowering young people and diversity and inclusion. So that's a little about me, and I'm really excited to be joining. So thank you for having me.
Great resource for University of Phoenix and Richmond Promise. Just making that plug.
Absolutely.
And we're going to close with Miss Esther Hugo.
So much for inviting me today. I am honored to be here. I've been asked to be on the panel as I'm an adjunct professor in the College of Education at San Jose State University. I'm no stranger to distance education, as I've taught online for UCLA and the College Counseling Certificate Program for 20 years. So I'm very familiar with online education. I also am the past president of the Western Association for College Admission Counseling, affectionately known as WACAC, which is based in California, Nevada, but most of our members are in California. And then finally, I have a connection to Richmond. For the last 7 years, I've been on the school board of Making Waves Academy in Richmond. And I come to this because I know as a counselor educator, counselors are pivotal in the school to college transition process. So I'm happy and excited to share some insights that I've gained from my colleagues and from research that I've done about how we can maximize student options. Thank you.
Awesome. So we're going to get into it just to kind of frame the discussion. We know that, in March, basically public education, schools shut down. About 48 million K through 12 students are doing remote learning, working from home, and college campuses shut down. And this has just been a shock to all of our systems. I learned this week that 81% of the world is in lockdown, some form of lockdown. In the United States, we have 40 million people who have filed for unemployment, 25% of the workforce. This is a harrowing time. So from a student perspective, Bobbie, if you can get us going, what was it like getting pulled off campus, leaving school? What has it been like graduating under these conditions?
One thing that it's kind of sad to share, but I actually don't remember my last day of school. I work pretty much sort of like part-time, full-time, and I go to school full-time. And so I just remember, and I don't have class on Fridays, but I just remember Thursday after class, I go straight to work. That was my Thursday. And then Friday went to work. And through the weekend, I got an email saying, hey, don't come back pretty much to campus for work, don't come back for classes. And I don't really remember the last moments of that day. And so I wish I could kind of relive that, and I was more cognizant of that, but that's just how it kind of happened. So that's been kind of challenging, just kind of letting that close in that way. I will say it has been interesting seeing how professors have been kind of working through this as well. I would say in any form of leadership, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're in business, even inside the classroom, or I would even say inside of a home for our parents that are listening there, leadership is so important. And I say this because I have sat through lectures that were live from professors that I could literally feel the anxiety that they're feeling. I've also sat through recorded lectures because a professor just didn't want to do the live lecture, so we couldn't have that in-person kind of feel. And so everybody's kind of doing it their own way, and we just have to, as students, from wherever we are, whether we're in a different time zone, back in Asia, in Europe, or if we're here home in the U.S., even if we're in New York, it's just been very challenging trying to get everybody together. I've had to do a few team projects. Let me tell you, I'm so grateful for technology and how we're able to use it. And I say that knowing that I have the privilege to do so, and that at using University of California, Berkeley, we've been kind of trained to use these tools from the beginning. So that wasn't really a gap for us of how to use it. But sometimes when we were moved from our initial situation of being in college and we're back home, there was that digital divide, right? So being accommodating to our peers, knowing what their situation is. So the experience is very complex, I will say. So I really want to shout out all the teachers and the professors that are trying their best to hold themselves up for students of a classroom of 25 to 30 to lectures of 400, because
Wow.
we also have that as well. So it's very complex, but we're doing the best that we can. And for our Cal grads, we have 1 week left, but it is challenging. And so I think this time really is, like I said, we call it an interesting time, but I want to redirect it and reframe it as a time of opportunity. How do we prepare our teachers and our leaders? How do we prepare our parents for this as well? And I speak this, wasn't able to say this, Bruce, but my mom was a graduate of University of Phoenix. She did her MBA, and I was raised by a single mom. So I understand the complexities of home life. If your parents also going to school or never went to school and you're now home trying to study, but you have, new home obligations now that you're studying from home. So it's very complex. And I know that was a lot, but a brief overview is so layered. And I'm still trying to understand it all, but I'm still trying to figure out what are ways that we can re-strategize in kind of developing a new system for education. What are these new tools? Because if anything, this is the time now, right? Everybody is at a starting point. We're all home, we're all strategizing. And so I think this is the time to think, how can we help our educational leaders? How can we expand the bandwidth of administration? How can we prepare our young people, even from kindergarteners that don't have Chromebooks at home? So it's very interesting, but I'm actually glad that I get to be in this time, because this is where our true innovators shine. Yeah.
I'm gonna give a Zoom clap to that. I have the pleasure of knowing Bobbie since she was a sophomore in high school. She won the Nifty Business Plan competition, and she got to go to New York. And I've seen her over these last 6-7 years, and she's one of the most inspiring young people that I know. And so, Bobbie, you continue to inspire, and you are going to make the most of this moment, even though it's so challenging. And she is one of the best public speakers that I've ever seen. We were on the stage at Dreamforce a couple years ago with 400 kids in the audience, and she moves people. So we need that inspiration. We need that hope. Jessie, you're working with 1,100 young people who just left college, came back to Richmond, another 700 young people who are looking to go off. What are you hearing from, these young people? What are the challenges they're facing? What are their needs? What are you working on?
Yeah, so I'll do my best to, speak to what is definitely a diverse, I'd say, array of experiences that we're hearing from our students, but there's definitely some common themes. And I love, Bobbie, how you frame this is really an opportunity. And I would just want to really echo that. I mean, I think this pandemic, as pandemics do, is just really highlighting and revealing some, existing both inequities, but also like best practices and opportunities that have always existed, but now there's a light that's, shining upon them. And, my hope is that it's really a call to action and, kind of motivation for us to not go back to business as usual. So, and I'll just kind of give you kind of the myriad things that we're hearing. I mean, number one, we know that college at this point is just too expensive. And for many of our students, even though we have a scholarship that we provide and many of our students qualify for state and federal financial aid, a lot of our students, the large majority, over 70%, are low income. 70% are first in their family to go to college, and they're really one kind of emergency away from potentially needing to scale down credits or stop out. And so we've been hearing, you know, immediately right off the bat, and we've been trying as an organization to respond both to like the short-term immediate response and providing direct aid to our students, and then also balancing that with like the longer-term like strategy and program kind of supports and planning that we know we need to also keep our eye on for like the uncertain future and whether or not, you know, college is going to come back, you know, in person or digital and all of that. So, you know, the main things right away were travel home for our students who were attending college, you know, at a distance or out of state. So we've been supporting, you know, students just getting back home. You know, number two is really the digital divide and really leaving campus needing like quality personal devices to keep like computers and reliable Wi-Fi to keep, you know, on top of their assignments and be able to finish out the semester. And then third, I mean, really our students are, you know, their needs are a proxy for their larger community needs and their family needs. And with, you know, I think you know, we're at like 14% unemployment and, you know, disproportionately impacting a lot of our students and families here in Richmond. There's a need for just money, groceries, food. So we kicked into gear and started a rapid relief fund for our college students and have been we filled at this point over 450 requests and over $50,000 of aid, but that's just like the tip of the iceberg. And we know that's just like a Band-Aid on a larger, you know, systemic kind of collective action plan that needs to happen to really wrap around our students and then also work to transform like existing systems. So that, you know, our students can stay enrolled, be represented, and continue to be the leaders that we need on their campuses. The other thing that I would say, Bobbie, you mentioned this, you know, the other thing we're hearing is that going back home is just not the same for all of our students, and finding a place where they can study when they're at home with, you know, other family members, that can be hard. Like, where can I go that has reliable internet, where I can focus, where I can concentrate and really, you know, you know, continue to finish out the semester strong. But I want to also say that the other thing that we're hearing is just like such a commitment and a desire on behalf of our students to stay enrolled and like continue on their educational path and journey. And also like our college students want to have conversations with the class of 2020, our high school seniors, and like talk to them about what they're going through and navigating this uncertain time. And so I just want to really underscore, you know, we're in a time of uncertainty, but I totally agree with Bobbie that this is also a time of opportunity where, you know, I think it's going to be our young people that really demonstrate and like innovate and help us get beyond this. Okay, one more thing I'm going to share is just that we've been super buoyed, I would say, by the response on behalf of our students to our kind of digital office hours and webinars and things like that that we started offering. Usually all of our programming is kind of done in person, but it's a reminder that this generation, not that digital can replace the personal, but is a digital generation. And, you know, I would just say like we're getting even more engagement. I mean, I don't want to overly state it, but a lot of really great quality engagement on behalf of our students in the webinars that we do. They're asking really specific questions, they're reaching out. So just want to also name that as an opportunity to really think about how, you know, the digital can also be impactful.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessie and Bobbie. You guys get some excellent insights from the perspective of what students are facing. When we think about the transition, Bobbie, you highlighted the importance of leadership and seeing how your professors are responding. And you also mentioned how are the students responding in terms of realizing that, hey, some people have challenges at home in regard to technology, and having that empathy or that understanding to understand that everyone is adjusting. And those are all critical pieces. And then really appreciate you highlighting the importance of the opportunity at this moment, not just for students, but for everyone in the ecosystem that touch or support students. And Jessie, I really appreciate the fact that you highlighted one of the biggest parts of the transition was students coming back home. That's one step, and then when they are home, how effective can they be in terms of juggling everything? And then we definitely applaud the response in terms of the Rapid Relief Fund to kind of help support students in their needs. And most importantly, I think just the responsiveness of everyone in that regard. So in that spirit, just wanted to kind of, with the shelter in place, as well as with the fact that there's no guarantee in when campus will reopen in the fall, I'd like to ask you guys, what's your guidance to students, to the counselors, to the educators in regard to how to support students, how to support the educators, how to help the counselors provide the right guidance to the students? What would be your thoughts in that regard as we kind of move forward? And I'll start with you, Esther. I'm sorry, Esther.
Am I unmuted now? Good.
You're good.
I think it's really important to understand the context of what the high school seniors were doing at this part of the lockdown. They're trying to make the decision about which campus to select. So there's some resources that I'd like to highlight that students can take advantage of. One of them is they can contact the admission office and ask to be put in touch with someone from the Bay Area who's at their school so that they can understand and really talk to someone who comes from their own environment. The students can definitely work with their counselors. All the counselors that I know and talk to have office hours. They have check-in times with students because they're not able to do that spring visit fly-in thing, but the counselors have a lot of information about the colleges that they can share and also insights. And then I always want to caution students about looking at grad rates in terms of selecting a college where they're going to be able to get an education the shortest amount of time with the least amount of debt. I think that's important. What I encourage counselors to take a look at, of course, is to stay connected to the premier counseling organizations, places like the College Board, NACAC, WACAC, all have are posting updates daily about how they can help their students with webinars and other resources. In terms of parents, I think it's really important that parents stay positive. I think they should go online and buy the sweatshirt for their kids, acknowledge their accomplishments. In my neighborhood, the few times that I venture out and drive around, I see that a lot of the schools have sent yard signs that acknowledge that a graduate, is there. So those are important things to do in terms of the affect, and then also very practically to really reconsider what's going on in financial aid. The job numbers came out today, and it's the worst job market in United States history right now. And you look at the numbers, but I think you want to realize there's a lot of pain behind those numbers in terms of what's impacting families and the students. So this is not the time for families to stretch their finances because it's not there. So to have that honest conversation about financial aid, Bobbie mentioned that too, to have that honest conversation about what parents can and cannot afford, I think is something important. And then another resource for students who want to be able to visit the schools, they can do that virtually. StriveScan is an organization. I know that you have follow-up, that you'll have some kind of links to things, but StriveScan is an organization that has organized virtual college fairs, and they're offering 350 presentations from admission directors. 450 colleges are involved from 45 states and 13 countries around the world. So it's a huge organization that students can take advantage in terms of making that final decision. And then we've heard a lot of conversation too about students maybe not wanting to go far away from home at this point. That has been mixed in the surveys that I've done with my colleagues. Some of the students are saying, with all of this togetherness with my parents, I can't wait to get out of the house. But if the college is going to be offering everything online, and as Jessie mentioned, the resources are not as optimal as they can be, people are having second thoughts about that. So it's really a mixed picture. I think that, and I love Bobbie's comment about this is a chance for us. This is an opportunity for us to be able to pivot and think about how to offer education in a different way. So I'm very excited about those possibilities as well.
Thank you, Esther. Definitely great insights. Bruce, would you mind sharing your thoughts as well?
Certainly. And I would layer in a little bit more to what Esther shared in terms of, she started off talking about just being clear on the institution, that you're looking at and what the financial obligations are with respect to those institutions, and, and the programs and the completion rates and all that type of stuff, right? Because at the end of the day, you're making an investment in your future, and it's a big choice that you're making. And so it's worth the extra energy and the effort that you put into trying to research it. At the same time, of course, you don't have to have all the answers. It's not going to happen. You're on a journey. You need, in my view, you need to look at it as a journey, right? Things are going to happen, events are going to occur, and you're going to learn, and you're going to make choices, and you're going to alter maybe where you had set things out. But to Esther's point, I think that a resource that people oftentimes are not aware that sits out there that hosts a lot of information is basically the Education Department, the US Education Department, which is essentially ed.gov, literally ed.gov. You go there, you can get access to the College Navigator. That Navigator can help you drill down to a specific college, or set it up where you can do a comparison of colleges. You can look at completion rates. You can look at the kinds of financial resources that they have. I mean, it's, something that I think came from the Obama administration that's been super powerful is the energy and the effort that was put into organizing this College Navigator resource. And so I know for us at University of Phoenix, every university is required to participate in it. But we've embraced it, right? It's a great way. Institutions have to be transparent. It gives you, the student and family, the opportunity to learn more, right? You make better decisions if you're informed. So I highly encourage that as a resource. And in fact, it is also hosting the latest information on essentially the CARES Act and the HERE Act, right? So that HERE is a Higher Education Emergency Resource Fund. So colleges are getting a lot of money distributed to them. Different colleges have different profiles, and so they'll not every school is going to get the same kind of support. Colleges are being given the discretion with how they feel they need to use those monies. And right now, the way it's all drafted is, there's essentially a one-year timeline for access to these resources. So, a year from now, students and schools, they won't have these extra resources. If they haven't used them, whatever they haven't used, that goes away. So right now, schools are putting in plans. Like for us, it was very simple. Our student mix, we have a very high mix now of online hosted students. That's kind of our thing, right? I mean, we still have classroom-based students. That's still part of our population, but the vast majority now, because they're all working adults. So we don't have technology issues. There's some institutions, they're going to put some money into technology or technology support for the students. For us, we're putting all the money directly back into our University of Phoenix students who have, who basically show the need in terms of their need profile. So just, I would be to communicate with the institution or institutions you are looking at or will be working with, right? I mean, that's their obligation. They are there to serve you. And so, you should be able to get information. At the same time, I would tell you, be a little patient, because I know on our end, we had a big pivot we had to make. Like, we had to take everybody that was classroom based And fortunately, we have a platform that hosts a Zoom style video conferencing inside our online classroom. It's called Collaborate. And so it ended up being relatively easy for us to take all those students out of the classroom and put them into literally a virtual classroom. But I would just share with you, be a little empathetic with the administration, because this is not, this has not been a small pivot. This is a bit like there are institutions out there that have had to, and we've been, I mean, that whole week, couple weeks, our senior leadership, we were meeting late, we were meeting weekends. I mean, it was nonstop while we tried to figure out the best things to do in terms of the interests of the stakeholders, of the employees, of the faculty, of the students, right? Every college has got a very diverse mix. So I'll just leave my comments there, but resources are out there. You get on the internet, do some research, you'll find good stuff.
Thank you, Bruce. Jessie, I know that with the Richmond Promise that you touch on a lot of young families and young people who are the first to go to college. And so I'd like to ask the same as that question, but could you also provide your guidance for students and parents who at this time cannot go to a physical facility to get insights about the college process in regard to which school is best for them, which financial package is best for them, things of that nature. Can you share your thoughts about what we suggest to students, to educators, as well as to the counselors that are advising them at this current time?
Sure. Yeah. So this is something that we've really been trying to jump into action with and thinking a lot about. And as kind of a nonprofit institution, we really see ourselves, I guess, as a navigator, right? And kind of connective tissue for students and families, particularly between our high school and then our colleges and universities. And, the biggest thing that we are really trying to do is intrusively text message and message the various supports that do exist, the people who are available, the experts, the counselors at high schools. We partner very closely with Students Rising Above, EAOP, 10,000 Degrees, even our own team. Like, there's myriad avenues for digital office hours, opportunities to really talk through the decision-making process. And, the thing is, it's an uncertain time, but the same decision matrix and the factors are that students and families need to consider around making a college choice still apply. Finances being one of the very biggest ones. We hosted a webinar actually recently, and if we're sharing resources, I'd love to share this resource with one of our nonprofit partners called MoneyThink, and they're actually developing an app for students to, it'll be here in the fall, but to kind of interpret their financial aid award packages and make an informed decision just around like the true cost of college. So finances are still a really big deal. Also, academic goals and fit and campus fit. But when thinking about, perhaps a digital fall and or spring, I think a lot what we're hearing through our team in office hours is that students are wondering, should I make the financial commitment and investment in a university, or should I maybe think about doing community college, for the first semester or first 2 years? And I would love to hear, Esther, Bruce, and others on the call. I mean, what we're really, our number one message, we've always been really, proud and supportive of our students to, go to multiple pathways, community college, career technical education, or university, but go. And that's really still our hope for our students is that, if you need to pivot to community college, if that's the best thing for you and your family next semester, we are here. We are all in to support you. But, there's a lot of questions about, should I take a gap year? Should I just not go? Should I work? And if, we want to the best of our ability, work with students to navigate that decision, but really emphasize, like, go in some capacity this fall and start and like keep that momentum and start your educational journey. But I'm curious because we get those questions also from families, like, what about a gap year? What about, so I would also love Esther and Bruce's and Bobbie, like what you're hearing on that subject too.
Thank you, Jessie.
I'm happy to jump in, but Esther, you raised your hand. Why don't you go? You're muted.
Okay, for students who are headed to community colleges, I talked to some community college counselors, And they have talked about there's a huge increase in applications suddenly because people are trying to cover all of their bases. And one of the most important things that students can do is to sign up for a summer class because that'll get them into the system right now, and also to work with a counselor to build an ed plan right now. And the community colleges have done a great job in terms of responding to the increased demand and student need. Their hours are now from 8 in the morning until like 10 at night. So they're on a flexible schedule because they know they're going to get a lot more students and different kinds of students from different backgrounds. So I think that's one thing that they can do. I worry that students, the academic rigor that students are experiencing may not be what they need to experience. And we all know that the students who do the best in four-year colleges and community college, they all need the same level of preparation. A lot of community college students think they don't need to work as hard. That is not true. Community college is still college. So I always want students to challenge themselves the most. So cover your bases and sign up for some community college classes right now and begin to get that in place. The other benefit, and this also speaks to what Bruce talked about earlier, is when students become community college students, they still have access to all of the campus programs and resources. So maybe they were going in undecided, undeclared, they're not sure what they really want to study. They can still access the Career Center at the community college. They're all doing virtual appointments, and take some of those assessments that will give the students more insight and direction in terms of what they want to pursue in higher education.
So I would, if it's okay, I'd like to add a little bit on to Esther's perspective. You know, I agree with the perspective of, you know, get into class somewhere, do something, right? You know, every family is a little different. Every graduate is a little different. So, you know, you've got to look at your own particular scenario. But I reflect back to my oldest son. So just only 2 years ago, our family was taking this major step of seeing our recent high school grad step into a major university environment, you know, away from home, thousands of miles away from home. And, you know, as a parent, it is probably one of the most emotional, but not every parent thinks this way, but for me as a parent, one of the most emotional incidents I've, you know, had. And at the same time, there is a lot that freshman takes on because it's the academic challenge. They're going to be challenged. They're going to be challenged to a different level than what they were in high school. That's just likely a fact. And on top of that, they're now in a completely different environment. They're, you know, you're now most welcome the opportunity for that next level of independence. But at the same time, you know, it is a place where you can be vulnerable, right? And so I think that there would be nothing wrong with somebody trying to do their first, you know, couple semesters at community college, if that's going to be best in terms of the cost of the family, in terms of, you know, the capacity for the student to make that migration, because it's not just the academic, but it's everything else that goes along with that. The thing that I worry, I hope, my personal, this is just me, I hope the schools are able to figure out a way to bring back their student body. Maybe they don't do football games, or maybe they don't do certain things that they did. But I mean, I can tell you right now, my junior, my, you know, recently finished sophomore, he missed not having his second semester, that's back half of his second semester on campus, as I'm sure, Bobbie, you did, right? And so one of the things we know in higher education is co-curricular activities, the clubs, the extracurricular activities that are, you know, actually a design and a part of the college experience. They help with retention, they help with student success. And so if we have to go to a remote scenario for a first semester, My worry is that there will be some negative impact in terms of retention. So I'm hoping that we, at a place where we're able to figure out, and colleges aren't going to have to go and do the remote. At the same time, just another little different flair to this, I would just tell any student, embrace the challenge of doing remote learning. Like the high schoolers have had to go do it. I know it's not everybody's favorite cup of tea. There was a great article recently in the New York Times that was spot on, saying essentially what you're getting now, but these high schoolers and all these other college level folks that had to pivot, that's actually not online learning. It was, the faculty had to make adjustments. You didn't get an ideal experience. So don't be misled that something that was subpar, for a multitude of weeks at the back end of your semester is what a virtual learning experience is like. If a faculty is given the time and the resources and the institution sets up the proper context to deliver content in an online environment, it's going to look and feel different than what many just experienced. But I would tell you, embrace whatever modality they put in front of you, because it's almost certain in the future, you're going to have to learn in a multitude of modalities. Be good at navigating new modalities. That skill in and of itself, in my view, will serve you well.
Thank you, Bruce. From the virtual tours to the resources such as ed.gov to the fact that we're encouraging folks to also register for community college as a stopgap or a transition to potentially going full-time to college. I think it's really important to hear the insights from Bobbie in terms of her perspective. As she mentioned, as someone who's about to graduate, what is the guidance she's receiving, and also someone who serves an administrative role at UC Berkeley. Speak to your insights or your suggestions to administrators as well.
Yeah, I would say from an administrative standpoint, what has been enlightening for me is really questioning when we're talking about relief in particular, and finances, who is in charge of distribution? What metrics are we using to decide how we're going to distribute this money? From someone who has received some kind of financial aid from the CARES Act, and then comparing it to other forms of aid, like, and I know it also varies what Bruce had said about the different populations that are in different schools, right? But also just kind of understanding who is in places of power and influence, right? Are we talking to the right people? Do we have the right people sitting at these tables who are basically in the long meetings that Bruce talks about, like later at night, right? And being transparent, like how these decisions are made. So that's, I think that's very important as far as like the administrative standpoint. Also having empathy, right? From a student's perspective, didn't even think about that, right? That we are on these calls, are in long wait lines, can't even get through. So different areas of, or vehicles of communication, if that's email, if that's other office hours, right? Even for administrators. So getting creative of how we do that. At the MBA program, we've actually been hosting pretty much office hours, emails and phone consultations Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30 p.m. And then we also started actually our own podcast. So we produce a weekly podcast, and we're giving updates to our MBA students every single week about, relief, about how to plan for your second year, even though we're not even there yet for our continuing students. So really getting creative about how we communicate to our students shows the extra layer, I would say, of empathy and support. And I know we're doing the best that we can, but I think that adds extra element of care to our students, because like you said, it is a big financial investment. We're talking college or MBA. So just showing that we're here, transparent, and for support. I'm going to back everybody that talked about for counselors. My counselor in high school, I went to Hayward High. She actually pushed me to go to UC Berkeley, and I'm so grateful to her. And so getting connected and prepared, not from, it just doesn't stop once you get accepted from your high school, right? It starts when you get that letter. You don't just get the letter and you sit on it and you say, hey, in August, I'm rolling through campus and I have my bags with me and I'm just gonna go. That was my biggest mistake when I started Berkeley 4 years ago, was I just got my letter and I didn't go through the financial aid package. I didn't sit down with my parents to talk about what the costs was of tuition and then also living and transitioning my second year. So a short story, when I had the conversation with my parents about if I wanted to move back home and commute to school or stay, my mom basically told me, she said, hey, if you want to be on your own, it's all you. Like, you're gonna have to get a job. And so that semester I had to find 2 jobs, pretty much. It was because I had to be transparent with my family and what we can afford. And so we made it work. And there's one thing that you can't teach sometimes is kind of this drive and integrity. And so I think there's one thing that, you know, I encourage all students to do is, even if your parents don't have it, or you say there's a lack of resources, that's one thing that somebody can't take away from you, is your willingness to continue and to finish on. So for the students that are thinking about, you know, different options post-grad, going into a university, or even taking a gap year, people are always talking about mental toughness right now and being mentally strong. I would encourage these folks to really take a breath and to not make hard decisions based on anxiety, and just making rational decisions just because a counselor said to do this way, or because your parents want you to stay home. To really collect yourself and really think about, what do you want your next maybe 4 years, or even your next half of your year to look like, and what you can mentally take. We talk about mental breaks all the time, right? Mental wellness, because that's what's going to drive you. So if you decide you're going to go to a 4-year, I'm going to mentally prepare myself that I'm going to, you know, be in a virtual classroom, or I'm going to mentally prepare myself to do the online summer classes. My recommendation really is to just take a breath and write down really what you want the rest of your year to look like. I think there are tons of resources available, and I think what the community forum is about, is getting the resources together and empowering the students, right, to make the decision for themselves. The tools are here, the tools are available, the resources here, but it's really to empower the students on what is the best decision for them.
Cool. I'm so thankful that all of you are here. You all have so much to share, and we can just keep going. But this is going to be a big transformation, right? Going virtual. How are you all thinking that higher education is going to be transformed? And if it gets transformed, is there a silver lining in this, right? Some of us are talking about, well, this is a good time to rethink. And I appreciate, Bruce, what you said, right? Embrace the new modalities. Online learning can get better, but what I'm really missing, right? I'm a former educator and I've got young children right now, is the social sides to learning. Some of this social side we just can't get back, and that's the richness of life. So if we are sheltering in place next year or on and off, what do we need to put in place? What do we need to do to make sure that wellness piece, that people feel connected, that we can build a sense of the class of, 2021? Like, what do we need to do? And I'm going to start going back to you, Bruce, to just, what is University of Phoenix putting in place?
Well, I think that, if we're doing it right in higher education, we're always evolving. We are always transforming. So I think the events that recently occurred are nudging some things more quickly to become adopted practice that weren't as much previously, right? Like we have faculty who they were great with online, and they had no issues at all jumping into, facilitating a class using video conferencing. But I have one woman in particular, great faculty. She had a very small class. She had a huge anxiety just having to facilitate to a smaller class, because we do, 4-hour block sessions. So you've got to keep people engaged. And, it's one thing if you're keeping someone engaged for an hour. It's another thing when you're keeping people engaged for 4 hours. And so she had a lot of anxiety. She had to take on, she finished her first class. She's like, Bruce, we went past the time that we need. She was just downright excited. Now, flip the clock forward, we're 6 weeks into it. It was a novelty at first, and students and faculty were kind of, intrigued at the fact they didn't have to hop in the car and go and drive in same place, same time, synchronous type learning experience. They're getting some of them are making noise. I popped into a class earlier this week because it was Faculty Appreciation Week at University of Phoenix, and we just ended up having a quick little sidebar conversation, and they were like, Mr. Williams, we want back to our classroom. So I think that that there is going to be a shift of how institutions and faculty adopt some of what they were forced to adopt to. I don't see it as being a sea change. I don't think that. I think it's going to be some incremental, which I think actually is a best thing. And I think the silver lining is that people now know that learning doesn't just have to be in a classroom. And in fact, actually, I think that is what the internet has brought. I know so many people, and I know for myself, I send them to MOOCs, oh, you want to learn something? I don't have a lot of money. Go pick up a MOOC, go to Coursera, go to some of these other things, and you can learn, like learning
read a
access.
book.
Yes, read a book. Yeah, listen to a book, right? I mean, where learning has come, in my mind, it is, I just get so inspired. I mean, I talk to, folks that are definitely in the senior level of their life cycle. They're taking these online courses, they're having, somebody that's 70, 80 years old, and they're doing an online course. They're having the time of their life. They love it, so I'm inspired. I think that the silver lining is where we've been going. It's just the fact that now we've had an incident that helps us get a little more comfortable with it, helps the adoption rate, moves us there a little faster. So thank you.
Appreciate that, hopeful. Esther, I want you to talk, but I want you to talk a little bit about admission processes and how that's being transformed, because, right, SAT is out the door for a year.
Right.
Like,
yeah,
do we need all these
SAT,
things?
ACT. And I think it's kind of helpful too to even realize, it's the understatement of the year to say the pandemic has affected everyone. But the class of 2021 has also been impacted. They've had their SAT, ACT tests waived. They don't have to take those for their applications. But that, again, puts a little bit more pressure on their overall application, their strength of curriculum, their transcript, their letters of recommendation, and the other components of the application. This is also the time of year when the class of 2021 would be showing demonstrated interest, which oftentimes figures into the college acceptance process. So the students are being advised by their counselors. And I also want to go back and say, thank you, Bobbie, for the shout out for counselors. I really appreciate that. The counselors are telling the students to go online and open an account, let the colleges know you're interested, and do all of this virtually. So again, the juniors are also being impacted as well. That's something they should do. In fact, one school is requiring that students do at least 4 virtual college visits, and 2 of those have to be with their parents. So again, I always like to say that going to college is a family effort, so getting the parents involved in that positive way. But in terms of the colleges, I want to say hats off to the colleges. They have really become very flexible in terms, they've responded, they're bending over backwards to try to help students. They know that students have lost all of their senior rituals, their social networks. They're holding tons of virtual open houses, preview days. They've rolled back the reply date, more than half of them, to June 1st. May 1st used to be the national reply date. Now they're giving them till June, and I think I heard that the University of Oregon is letting students decide as late as September. So they're being more flexible and also more collaborative. Some schools are waiving their letters of recommendation. And then they're also doing something which I think is really important for our first generation students, or really vulnerable students, in that they're saying that they're reaching out to anyone who's applied for financial aid, saying, I know your financial aid situation has changed. What can we do to help? This is how you can reach out to us to let us know about changes in your finances. So the colleges have done quite a bit. What they've realized, I think one of their little silver linings is now they realize they could have done a lot more virtually. One school, in order to promote different programs and to get people to understand what they're all about, they asked their faculty members to do like a little handheld selfie video where the faculty members are talking about what their programs are. So you know that those professors are going to be very passionate and articulate about their programs. That information is uploaded to the website, and it's generated a lot more interest in terms of the students are clicking on those and getting that connection with the faculty. And I would also echo what Bruce talked about. It's so important in an online class to create a community of learners. That's what you want to go for. So I think what's going to happen is you're going to have to find forums where you can do that in a very small individual way. In the class that I teach online for UCLA, I respond to every single student's post, and I learn something about them personally so that I can refer to that later on. It's really critical to do that so that you're not just that face in the Zoom box, that people really have taken time to know who you are, what your essence is, what motivates you, and to respond to that in a concrete and meaningful way. So I think that's going to take a little bit more effort. It's not just putting out information, it's also appreciating the person's contribution and their presence. So I would say that the colleges have done a great job in terms of flexibility, opening hours, relaxing requirements. They're accepting a lot more students than they ever have. The wait list, they have much longer wait lists. In fact, they're already going to the wait list right now to extend offers. They're anticipating about a 20 to 25% reduction. Of the colleges and universities that are on the common application, more than half of them are reporting a significant drop in terms of students applying. So there's a lot of uncertainty about the college admission process, and the colleges are aware of that. They know that a lot has been lost, and they're doing everything they can to make the transition as smooth as possible for students.
Thank you, Esther and Bruce. Seems like we're all kind of trying to reiterate that everyone's trying to be as responsive as possible, trying to adapt, learning and pivoting based on seeing what works and what doesn't work. As we kind of come to the close of this particular session, wanted to give a chance to Bobbie and to Jessie kind of to highlight what's your hope for the class of 2020 and how can the community rally to support their efforts, whether it's parents, whether it's their friends, just creating that support system for them. So Bobbie, I'll start with you first and you can share your thoughts.
Yeah, I would say for the class of 2020, and this may not sound much because maybe I don't know everybody that's graduating, but I will say that this is the best time. Like, we can take full advantage of this time and make it work for you. Like I said, we are all at the starting point right now, and there are so many things available to you right now. And to my message to them is to go out, go find out more information, what things that you can take advantage of, whether it's going to school or even supporting your family and finding work for yourself. Because there's a saying that, you know, we talk about unemployment. There are folks that are still hiring right now, and tap into your network. Start talking to people that, you know, went to your high school or are going to the college that you currently are thinking about, and start just talking and having these conversations with people, because honestly what I found right now is that so many people are willing to help. Like, I have asked and I've sent cold LinkedIn messages, and I've reached out to people years ago that I've met, and everybody's really willing to help everyone out. So don't feel afraid to ask for help. The help is available to you. As a student, I will say, and as the youth and as future, it is your responsibility to take action. So yes, everything is here for you, but you have to take the next step and to just go. And I'm kind of finding myself in the same place, starting over, graduating. And so I'm coming back and I'm asking, you know, old mentors, people, you know, that I've never talked to in quite a while, like, how can I be resourceful? And that's really what makes an individual, is not how many resources. Really, we can be in abundance or we can have a small abundance, but how resourceful you can be. I've seen a lot of folks in different situations, a lot of students that say they can't do it, they can't do it. And it's really about the individual. So it is available to you. Really sit down, do a vision board, write down what do you want your next half year to end of the year to look like, to your next 4 years, and talk and to be real about yourself, and then also to your family. If you do have family that is supporting you, and being honest and transparent. But that I'm so proud of everybody, and I'm so proud of everybody on this call for being supportive. But I think, honestly, if we can come out of this, we can literally do anything, anything.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Bobbie. And since we're at the top of the hour, Jessie, if you can share your last thoughts in terms of how we could, your hope for class of 2020 and how we can support them.
Sure. Well, I would echo everything that Bobbie has really lifted up. And I guess my message to class of 2020 and to our Richmond Promise scholars is just that they're like your, college dreams will not be canceled. Your future is bright, and there is a community that is committed to your success. And so reach out, get the information that you need to make the informed decision about your next steps this fall. And for the class of 2020 that is in Richmond, please consider Richmond Promise, your home base of support. We are here to support you and connect you if we don't have the answers to the resources that you need. But the class of 2020, you are the leaders that we need on our campuses, and you are the leaders we need in our communities shaping the future. So onward.
And if you don't live in Richmond, there's Promise initiatives all over the country. It's a wonderful network, and they, Promise initiatives are there to support us. We're up with our time, but this has been super impactful. We really appreciate everything that you had to share. We're going to share these resources out with our networks. We hope that you continue to do the great work that you're doing. Next week on the Community Forum, we're talking about putting America back to work, with a special focus on opportunity youth and helping opportunity youth access the economy. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to come back to the transition to college and career and helping class of 2020 enter the workforce. So, hope you come back for those conversations. But thanks for all you do, and let's stay connected and keep building.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Appreciate y'all. All right, take care. Thank you.